Hi, everybody. It's meteorologist Joe Chaffee, and it's the day of the solar eclipse. So it will be what it will be. We are watching clouds coming out of Ohio and western Pennsylvania, and they're going to kind of time themselves out to move across northeastern Pennsylvania, northern New Jersey, Long Island, New York City, Connecticut, southeastern New York, and the Hudson Valley, just at about the time, a little after 2:30 when this eclipse hits its peak, and that would be unfortunate. I don't know if it'll be a complete overcast. I don't think it will. There should be breaks, but let's hope that the breaks in the cloud cover are around where the sun is in the sky. In the meantime, those folks that picked out Tennessee, Nashville, good choice. We do have clouds, though, as you go northward up into Missouri and parts of Nebraska and Kansas. You know, the path of totality kind of runs something like this. I'm sort of drawing that crudely, and it's, you know, a few miles either side of that. But you can see the issues of where you can see where it's clear and where it isn't. And of course, where we are, we're only going to be seeing 75% of this anyway. So it is what it is. But we do have some showers and thunderstorms breaking out over parts of the Midwest today where there's a severe weather risk, and there's a large area for tomorrow where there's a severe weather risk, and I'll show you with the Storm Prediction Center. I'll pull that up in just a little bit. In the West, let me see if I can get that West satellite view. I thought I had it up here. Oh, I do. I just have to turn off the draw mode. Okay. So here in the West, in the meantime, where I haven't been paying much attention to you guys lately because we've been doing these live streams, it's just been a little difficult. So I'm approaching this a bit differently today. You can see the clouds that run from the Dakotas down through Nebraska, Kansas, on up into Texas and West Texas and New Mexico. Much of Texas is in the clear today. And, of course, in the West, particularly in the Pacific Northwest, it looks like a great day. So if you're up in northern Oregon or through the path of totality, you're going to have quite the show today. So let's move forward with regards to the tropics, because there are a few things going on that I want to address. Actually, before we do that, let's see if I can get the severe weather. Yeah, here we go. And I can. So here's the severe weather threat for today. Small area of marginal risk, by the way, in eastern Pennsylvania down into northeastern to south central Pennsylvania, north central Maryland, on up into northern Virginia, that there could be some pop-up strong thunderstorms late this afternoon. And then you can see the larger area of slight risk out to the west. Now on Tuesday, we have a very large area of slight risk, just about all of New York State except the southeast, on up through Vermont, most of Pennsylvania except the southeast, and then down into Ohio, West Virginia, and Kentucky. This is part of that next cold front that's going to be coming through and bringing in some much cooler air. Tuesday, we're going to see temperatures in the upper 80s to low 90s across my area of coverage and areas nearby. This may be the last time we see 90 degrees this month, and possibly for the year, because you know, we're deep into the month of August now, and you start to get into early September. 90-degree days are kind of tough to come by unless you have a perfect setup. All right, so we'll skip from there, and I want to just go to the tropics because we have two areas of interest. We have one that's going to be off the Florida coast late in the week, which we will talk about, and we will also talk about the one that's a bit more pressing, and that is what was left of Tropical Storm Harvey. And when we look on the satellite this morning, we're seeing a general increase in thunderstorm activity as it moves toward the Yucatan Peninsula, but we still don't have a really well-defined circulation again. It's possible that this thing could organize a bit before it makes landfall sometime on Tuesday, but I'm not so sure whether it'll be able to get back to tropical storm strength before it does so. What is probably of greater interest is what happens afterward, because it is going to emerge off the Yucatan Peninsula, and the course by the track models of the hurricane track models continues to shift to the north. In fact, today's run for the first time has more models taking it inland along the coast of South Texas as opposed to keeping it into northeastern Mexico. And I think what this is the models are responding to the deep trough that's going to be in the eastern part of the United States. Of course, we have to see whether this thing winds up developing. And while a majority of the models do eventually bring this back up into tropical storm strength, and even a couple of them take it into hurricane strength, there are some that do not. So we'll have to see how it plays. Conditions by the time it gets into the southwest Gulf will be favorable or should be favorable. I'm not 100% sure they will be, but it should be favorable. And the other thing is, by moving northwestward, it is going to be able to track over a larger area of open waters in the Gulf of Mexico, so it may have more time to organize into a hurricane, assuming that the upper level conditions are favorable. Now here's the satellite loop this morning. Here's the remnants, the open wave that is what was Tropical Storm Harvey. This is the 92L tropical wave that is now moving into the Bahamas, and it looks like it's going to be sitting here for a while. Now, we've got an upper low in the eastern part of the Gulf of Mexico, and you can see it here with the swirl of clouds turning counterclockwise, and you also have this gigantic upper low back out in the Atlantic, and the water vapor imagery shows that really well. So we may have hostile conditions again developing in the tropical Atlantic, at least for a little while. I'll see if I can I stretch this out? No. Okay, but let me just shift it over a little bit. Oh, I already put it in paint mode. Okay, never mind. All right, so you've got dry air once again showing up in the tropics, and you can see it here. Whoops. Man, I'm having a tough time today. Let me change that color. Here we go. So there's dry air here that's come off the African coast. It's a small patch, but for the most part, the tropics look fairly saturated with some moisture. But you've got this upper low, this creating strong upper level winds down south of 20 degrees north again. So any waves coming out, at least for now, or until this thing either pulls northeastward or northwestward, you're not going to have much in the way of development. There's a smaller upper air low in the high atmosphere over the eastern Bahamas, and you've got this mess over here, this upper low, and this is actually having some impact with regards to the remnants of Harvey. Now, what's happening is, or what's supposed to happen is, this thing is supposed to move northwestward and get out of the way, and that should create a good outflow pattern in the southwestern Gulf of Mexico once it gets there. Whether it happens or not remains to be seen. There's also another tropical wave here south of 10 north. You can see it here in the intertropical convergence zone, but it's pretty far to the south, and at least for now doesn't show any signs of development. But you can see this mess here with this upper low. It is tracking to the west, so it's moving pretty much at the same speed as this. That the remnants of Harvey is moving west, so it's probably why Harvey's been able to at least maintain some degree of identity, some sense of character. Otherwise, it could have been sheared apart if this thing was either slower, or if the remnants of Harvey were further to the northwest. So I think what will happen is you're going to see this the remnants of Harvey survive intact, move on into the southwestern Gulf. This upper low will pull northwestward, and that should allow for a good outflow to develop once the system gets there. Now, as far as this one is concerned, we've got a few things that we're going to have to watch for, and we'll get to that shortly. I just want to, oh no, I already did the track model guidance, so you know what, we can go ahead and move forward, and let's take a look at where we're going with this. So let me put up tropical tidbits, and we will take a look at what's happening. By the way, the next cold front is going to be the catalyst for a few things happening, and here is that next cold front, which by Wednesday morning is on the coast, and behind it is a very cool air mass that's building down. A nice high is coming into play here. That's going to set us up for cool conditions for several days or more. Now, the front is going to stall, and you can see from the GFS last night that even the GFS, and let me just change colors again, that even the GFS has Harvey regenerating into some sort of tropical storm and now moving it also into South Texas. The European was not that different. In the east, the cold front stalls. And if you remember, we had a frontal wave that developed on a front back a month or so ago that became Tropical Storm Emily. The question is whether we're going to see any kind of tropical development again, and is it going to be generated by the frontal wave, or is it going to be generated by the remnants, whatever's still intact with 92L, or maybe it's going to be a combination of both. But the GFS does develop a little low here, and then eventually takes it to the northeast and out northeastward and then eastward because of the upper air scenario that we have set up. But you know what? This is one of these situations where you just kind of, we're going to have to just watch for model run to model run, because we will have, you know, strong high pressure in the east. Let's look at the upper air and see if the upper air tells us anything different, because ultimately that will be key. And I'm going to use the full view so we can look at the east and the west, since, you know, everything impacts everything else. But one of the scenarios that would certainly favor a northeast to east motion is the fact that, you know, we've got this deep upper trough. Now here we are for Tuesday. You can see that deep trough that swings into the east. And this is probably one of the reasons why the Storm Prediction Center is aggressive with the threat for severe weather, is that this is a very strong trough with a lot of dynamics involved, and you have a lot of cold air aloft, a good temperature contrast between either side of the cold front. You've got high dew points that are going to be coming into play on Tuesday as some tropical air gets involved. So you do have a good setup for severe weather here come late Tuesday night into early Wednesday. Now, one of the important keys going forward with whatever happens off the southeast is the fact that the trough in the east lingers. Part of it comes out, but then another arm dives down and around. This is going to create a westerly to west-southwest flow. So I would think anything that forms down here is going to wind up going northeast and then eastward up the Atlantic. It probably will do it slowly, and that could have perhaps some tidal flooding concerns and rough sea concerns for a few days in the eastern part of the United States. But you know what? We got to get something to develop first before that is part of the equation, and we start worrying about that. Now, eventually that trough pulls out, but guess what? Here comes another one that swings around, and you know that seems to be again, the pattern here is where we get a couple of days where the ridge builds into the eastern states, and that's what's sort of happening today and Tuesday. And then we go back to the same pattern, which is trough in the east, ridge in the west. Now, at the end of the period on this particular model run, the GFS wants to have a trough out there in the west, but if we go back to the 0Z run, it was totally different. This look here seems to make more sense to me, with the ridge in the west and the trough in the east, because that's been the signature pattern. And by the way, notice that how the trough gets stretched out northeast southwest, so the flow, the upper air flow, is basically west southwest east northeast. So anything that is out here is going to want to recurve and move northward. So we'll stop here at this point. We'll see how the tropics develop over the next couple of days with regards to these weather systems. I would probably say that since the model track guidance is certainly shifting northward, and I can see why, because you've got, even though the trough does not extend all the way down, it does extend down far enough south so that there is a bit of a weakness here. And if this system winds up turning more northwestward, would not be at all surprised. And if it winds up gaining significant intensity, it is possible that it could even turn more northward with time. So let's just be, let's maybe be a little cautious here in terms of the ultimate outcome. If it stays very weak and doesn't get going, then you probably would favor a more west-northwest track into Mexico. But certainly the door is open for the possibility of the remnants of Harvey developing back into a tropical storm and moving up the East Coast. All right, folks, so just have a great day, and we will talk to you a bit later on. Can't really do a live chat today, so I had to put it on tape because kind of busy with everything going on. But maybe we'll, if there's time, I think there might be some time tomorrow. We'll do a live chat.